Welcome back to Combat Mission Shock Force 2, where we have the second round of Halloween's Germans versus my US Marines. It's not a meeting engagement this time. Here, the Germans are conducting an attack into this chunk of urban Syria, and it's up to the Marines to stop them. This presents a very different challenge from our first battle, not just because we're now in an attack-defend setup, but because of what you could call a few external inputs. Firstly, I have played this map before. In fact, this map is in many ways the bane of the NATO forces over in the Operation 5 Lines multiplayer campaign. It looks a little bit weird with all the buildings still standing and without all the craters, but long story short, I do have a little bit of a home field advantage on this one. Secondly, I wanted to go in a different direction than I did in our first clash. In that battle, I brought a very tank-heavy force along, backed up by helicopter gunships, and while this was effective, it didn't have a really distinctly Marine flavour to it. There is nothing more Marine Corps than the Marine Riflemen, so for this one I wanted to bring an infantry-heavy force. This fits with the density of the terrain quite nicely. I'm going to need a high force to space ratio to cover all the approaches, and the tentative plan I came up with for a tank heavy force was a bit of a dice roll anyway. I think it would probably have worked, but it involved using a load of Abrams to pen Halloween in his setup zone within the first few turns, which would not only be a kind of one-trick pony. If it went wrong I wouldn't be able to recover, but it was a little bit too gamey and probably wouldn't have made for a very interesting game. In any case, the Marines are apparently prepared to scrap their tank battalions and recover their role as a projectile delivered by the US Navy, so let's see how that goes. What I've ended up with is a Marine Infantry Company. That's 3 infantry platoons, each of which has 3 13-man squads, 2 M240 machine guns and 2 SMORs, backed up by the Battalion Scout Sniper Platoon with 6 50 cal Raufoss round-equipped sniper teams. And an awful lot of artillery. I've got the battalion's organic 81mm mortars, off map because they're cheaper that way, and 2 2-gun 155mm howitzer batteries. In total, that's 400 81mm mortar bombs and 240 155mm shells, which isn't as much as I would like, but I suppose I'll have to do with my limited budget. Supporting all of this, I have the battalion and company HQ elements with 4 javelin teams and 3 forward observer types between them. A drone, this time the one that is too small to be shot down by Stinger missiles, 5 target reference points, and 4 little anti-tank minefields. You may be detecting the outline of a plan emerging from this force selection. Essentially, I want to tar pit Halloween with my infantry, slowing him down and holding him in place so that my artillery can annihilate him. The big drawback to this kind of force is that it's only foot mobile. I've brought 2 troop carrier Humvees along, but that's it for vehicles, so once the game starts, I'm going to be pretty limited in my capacity to react. In other words, my deployment is going to be critical, and how accurately I judge the terrain and Halloween's offensive options has a high chance of determining the course of the game. So no pressure going into the terrain analysis then. I have already attacked this map in another game though, so I've got a bit of a head start. Blue starts in the top right hand corner, and from here he has 3 options. He can attack straight into this residential compound area on my right, he can move into the centre to attack the intersection, or he can swing round onto my left to attack through this 4-storey apartment complex. These all have advantages and disadvantages. Hitting my right, he can get out of the open very quickly, but he's going straight into some very dense, restrictive terrain from the word go, so he's going to lose some speed and have to pass through multiple bottlenecks while worrying about multiple angles. The centre probably offers better opportunities for speed, but that intersection is one big choke point, and it isn't the kind of place an attacker can easily leverage his firepower advantage. On the other hand, my left is that kind of place. The terrain is much less dense, and if Halloween is going to go down the Leopard Marder route, then he's going to have lots of standoff distance to work with. Plus, those apartments are the high ground of this map, and if he gets some FOs up on there, he should be able to RT wherever he likes. The downside is that to get onto that flank, he's got to cross the whole width of the map, so I should have some early warning. Beyond these initial choices, we can again divide the map into thirds, this time separated by the main roads. The centre isn't very appealing to an attacker because it's full of tightly packed buildings and it doesn't really lead anywhere. On the flanks though, the terrain is more open, giving him more opportunities to bring the full power of his fire support to bear, and this is especially true on the left, where there's all this open ground and the widely separated apartment blocks. The big issue for me defending this map is working out which path Halloween is going to attack down. This should be relatively easy. I've got the 6 sniper teams that I can spread out as my outpost line backed up by the drone. The tricky part is where to engage him. This is an attack scenario, so the victory points are allocated differently to a meeting engagement. There are fewer points for destroying the enemy, only 350, and more points for holding the ground objectives. 120 for the intersection up front, then 260 each for the 2 major objectives further back on the flanks. So actually inflicting pain on the enemy here is less about building up points for the endgame and more about delaying or blocking him from getting to the ground objectives. So here, time is on my side, and everything I can do to slow Halloween down, physically or psychologically, is going to chip away at his chances of success. But keeping my own pixel drop and alive isn't as important as long as they're delaying the enemy or moving to preserve their capacity to delay him. And this is going to affect my judgment on where to try and engage Halloween's Germans. The traditional kind of defensive setup is to have the main line of resistance, the actual stop line, in depth away from the front so that the enemy's fire support is less effective, with a screening outpost line in front. That's sensible, but it means I'm not going to be taking advantage of the prime defensive terrain that is that residential area up on my right, and it also means that I have more ground to cover. The deeper into the map I defend, the more the potential routes an attacker might take multiply. The further forward I defend, the fewer options I have to cover. So I kind of have to find a balance here between shielding my force from Halloween's firepower and having elements far enough forward to maximise the amount of time I can delay him. In the end, I've got a bit of a mixed bag. The scout sniper platoon is out front, and I have my infantry platoons split up and well dispersed, with 1 each covering the left, centre and right. The platoon on the right is going to contest that residential area, trying to fight at close quarters. The platoon on the left is a kind of backup in case Halloween punches that flank. They're set up in the actual objective area, which is somewhat risky if the game kicks off with a huge artillery bombardment, but they're not in the front row of buildings exposed to potential Leopard and Marder fire, so they should be okay. The centre platoon has a narrower area to work in, so they're going to be able to shift to supporting the left or right, depending on how the battle develops, as well as having a few elements covering the intersection. I have 4 javelin teams in total. 1 is covering down the main road from a nondescript and hopefully not too obvious building. 1 is up in the apartments where it can get a good view of what Halloween is up to in the early game, and the other 2 are in a Humvee in the rear, so I can rush them into position when enemy intentions become clear. I have FOs spread out all over the place, with 1 team in the rear so they can operate the drone without getting shot at. The TRPs are spread out in areas where it will be difficult to call in artillery, and the mines are scattered over some choke points. I'm not expecting much from them, but hopefully they might take a vehicle out or immobilize something and give Halloween something else to worry about, again hopefully causing him to slow down and worry about mines. That then is the plan. Right now, as of writing this is the 15th of April 2020, and I've got the preceding chunk of script down before pressing that big scary red go button, so I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. Fast forward a day or so, and as it turns out, from the looks of turn 1, the game is shaping up to be an interesting one. So, what with most people currently having a lot of time on their hands, I've started recording the turns and I'll run this one as a turn-a-day series. There are 2 caveats to this. Firstly, I'm defending, so at least to begin with, it's not necessarily going to be an adrenaline-fueled, action-packed game. Secondly, this is a normal game of combat mission, and the format isn't geared towards producing a short, snappy, exciting game like it was in Blood on the Snow, so I can't say with absolute confidence that this game is going to make for a good turn-by-turn battle. What I can say is that Halloween gave me a good run for my money the first time we fought. Things are looking pretty good as we start off, and there's a very high chance that this is going to be a nice, interesting game. So with that, I'm just going to run straight into turn 1, and we can have a look at everything. Yeah, there should be hopefully a little introduction bit before this where I explain what the hell I'm doing. And we can just get on with this. So this is a little bit impromptu. So I should hopefully be able to edit out any unsavory background noises that are going on. You'd be amazed how much noise people make when they're locked indoors all day. So yeah, he is attacking from this direction. This is his deployment zone here. That classic reverse slope safe place to be at the start. I have no idea. Well, actually I do, because I've already seen this turn. I didn't really intend to do a series for this video, and then I thought, you know what, this is a fantastic opportunity. It should be pretty good. So I don't know how this is going to end yet. We will see. So, you know, it's the first turn. What I'm looking to do is I will work out exactly what Halloween is up to, what his plans are, and if possible, what kind of force he's brought along. That's what I'm kind of looking out for. I have my recon screen, my recce screen, which is the scout sniper platoon, who are kind of spread across this way, and I've got some other bits and bobs, the FO team or a FIS team out here. We've got a javelin team up in this building. This infantry squad here from this platoon, who are set up on the right flank. This squad is pushing forward into this kind of block here because I want to be a huge pain and try and delay Halloween as much as I can. I've got a very infantry artillery force. I don't have any vehicle. Well, I've got 2 vehicles. I've got two Humvees. One's at the back with these 2 javelin teams in. And what I want to do is that's like my reactive anti-tank force. I want to dash them to where they can be most effective instead of pinning them to a single location. And kind of similarly, of my other 2 javelin teams, I got one covering the main road here, like that, and I have one up here covering, well, it's kind of got 2 lines of fire up here, up against this area of residential, and through this gap in the apartments here, this area. And behind him and the FO have got a Humvee, which is just sitting here, waiting to evac them if the enemy gets too close or if they give their position away, that kind of thing. So, I'm probably just repeating myself here, but let's press go on this. And, well, I know what's going to happen. Yeah, so we've got our first little spot there. See, that's a sound file for an aircraft. First time I watched this through, it was a different sound. It was a different sound file for the aircraft approach, and yeah, I couldn't decide whether it was background noise, you know, like the ambient battlefield stuff. It wasn't. There we go. Doesn't that sound like a missile? Boom. Oh, I had the hit thing turned off. Let's turn that back on. So yeah, first blood to Halloween, and we're picking up a couple of spots down here. So he's not rushing out of his deployment zone here, which is interesting. Let's rewatch that because that was pretty cool. So it's just one poor, you know, Private Canfield sitting there in the Humvee waiting to go, and then he just, well, I suppose at least he didn't know very much about it, and that's freaked out these guys a bit. The FIS team is decided it wants to be somewhere else, and the Javelin team is pinned, but that's cool. Let's see, where did that hit? Let's turn the smoke off. All I'm getting is top hull penetration, so it doesn't really matter where it hits. It's a Humvee, it's not like it's bulletproof. So yeah, he has at least one aircraft flying around, which is interesting. So that was either, you know, probably a missile, it sounded like, so like a Maverick or something, which I'm actually going to have to, in between this video and the next one, I'm going to have to go away and read up on the German air support options, what the Luftwaffe can bring to the fight, what kind of missiles. I think Maverick or Maverick territory, it wasn't a bomb, because A, the crater is far too small. This building is still here, so it wasn't like a 1,000-pound bomb. And we got that missile launch kind of noise in the background, so pretty sure that was something like a Maverick, some kind of guided anti-tank missile, I think. He doesn't know that it's hit just the Humvee. All he knows is that it's hit something, and it's on, whatever it was is now on fire, so it's been destroyed. So first order of business for me in the next turn is to get my very valuable Javelin teams out of this Humvee and into a building, and then drive that Humvee off somewhere to provide some false, a bit of deception. So I think maybe putting it on a road, one of these roads at the back, you know, covering these long stretches of open flat ground, just to make him think, oh, Hapless has some tanks. Well, if it gets hit, which it probably will. Just to make him think, oh, hey, Hapless has got some tanks back there. I need to factor tanks into my equations, because I don't have any tanks. So if he thinks I have got some, that's going to make him a lot more cautious, especially after the last game, where obviously I kept my tanks in reserve until right near the end. So we've got our infantry squad over here, has moved up, got a little anti-tank minefield here on this little choke point. So yeah, these guys came up fine. One thing about the US Marine squads, if we get down here, is not only do they have 3 teams of, well, a 5-man lead team and then 2 4-man sub teams as well, so they have 30 men in the squad, which is a lot. But each squad actually has 3 one-shot disposable AT weapons, so 2 M72A7 Laws, which is like 66 mil, and then 1 M136, which is 84 mil. So if you think each one of these squads has 3 anti-tank weapons, that's quite a lot of short-range firepower. And if anything pops up, vehicle-wise, not that we've seen any vehicles yet, they should be able to do a number on them. Like I say, what I want to do is I want to make him cautious, and then kind of tarp hit him in certain areas and smash him with my artillery, of which I have a lot. What was it? 240, 155 mil rounds and 400 rare 81mm mortar bombs. So yeah, just give me some targets. So in terms of actual enemy infantry that we saw moving across here, where are you? There you go. So guy with a Panzerfaust 3 doesn't really tell us very much. I think we just see this one guy here, but that's kind of like, so you know, where's he going to pop up? Is he going to pop up in that building? We'll see. If he does, then well, we're going to have some people around here where we can engage him. And then we also have there was a guy here right at the end as well. Come on. There we go. So yeah, that's just the rifleman. That's not telling us anything, except that Halloween looks like he's being quite cautious. Probably doesn't have time for this. It's only got 1 hour 15 minutes. One of those minutes is gone. So he's just kind of testing the waters, I think. Down here in the corner, I have some kind of missile team. I think that's highly likely to be a Stinger team. So in the last game he brought 2 Stinger teams, which were quite effective. They shot down the drone I brought with me. But I haven't brought any air power, so that's wasted points. He's brought at least 2 riflemen, probably more. So this is why it's important to vary things when you play the same people. And then over here, finally, those guys aren't suppressed or anything. This sniper team has run all the way up here. I want to, like I said, I want to make it look like I have a bigger force than I actually do. I want to just, get some things into position. If I can get them just like lurking in a building somewhere down here, hopefully, if he figures that my mainliner is, my main force is over on this side, he might be able to bypass them, and then I'm going to have a sniper team behind him. And just like in the other game, the scout sniper platoon has the option to have it's 3 squads, each of which is 2 teams. An M16A4, an M82A3, which is, I've brought that because again we got that sexy 50 cal Mark 211 Raufoss round, and then a M16A4 with the M203 grenade launcher. These are all on elite because it did not cost very much to upgrade them. So they are hopefully actually going to hit things when they shoot at them. Make a nice change. So, let's run that 3. No, I didn't miss anything. Okay, boom. So, first order of business: get out. You guys are getting out of the Humvee, and you are running away. And we'll give that. Because these guys are on the dismount command, they should get out immediately. On my special, I can't dismount them anymore, so they should get out. But I'm still going to give the Humvee a 5-second delay, just so they have time to get clear. And then we will. Now I want to. This needs to be quite clean, quite a clean break. I don't want that Humvee to be hanging around. Yeah, so we're going to get there, and then in the next turn, so this way he's nowhere near any of my other forces. So if he just get blapped, that's cool, that's fine. And then next turn I'll disembark the driver. Oh, it's got more bleeding. It's got more 84s in. Gutted. I should have really handed those out. In fact, that's like mistake number 2 so far that I know about. First mistake was I forgot about this TRP, so I have a random TRP, which is where I left it in the deployment. Hopefully he's going to go near there. So that's that. Let's get this platoon. You guys are going in there. That's excellent. You guys are in the building already, that's cool. Let's get you guys in there. Can you see out of there? Is that wall in the way? Oh no, that's okay. So what I want to do, this kind of position, Halloween's got to come. This is one of the ways I came when I played through this game the first time when I was attacking. It's kind of coming up this way and getting into these top stories, and so you can see all this horrendous attacking terrain. I mean, look at this. All these compound walls and all this stuff there. It's horrible. But what I want to do is present resistance, slow him down, and then smack him with the arty. So to do that, that's sort of. Let's make sure these guys aren't going to do anything. No, back upstairs. This guy's going to sit in that building. That's cool. This sniper team here, this is on the ground floor, and the reason that it's on the ground floor is because if I put them up here on the top floor, yeah, sure, they've got a much better field of view, but balconies suck in combat mission. I don't want my troops to go stand on the balcony because they're just going to get spotted and they're going to get shot. It's quite difficult to stop them from going out on the balcony if they're left to their own devices. So if you look, most of my troops here, you need to be on the top floor. So like this, exactly like this. Look, these guys are just sat on the balcony here. And what I need to do is put them on the top floor, where there is no balcony. On that side at least. This side, not so worried about. But yeah, that's already gone on for far too long. I'm going to try and keep these short and not repeat myself too much, he says, optimistically. So yeah, that is those guys sorted, and the important part here is the drone. No, we're just going to whack the drone up over here. You can cover a huge area with it. It's going to take 2 minutes to come in, then we can start spotting targets for the artillery. These guys, it takes them 5 minutes to call it in, except on a TRP. Where's my TRPs? And it takes 2 minutes. That's for the heavy stuff. For the 81mm mortars, it's 3 minutes, or less than 1 minute on a TRP. So that's ridiculous and fantastic. So yeah. I'm going to send that back off and we will see what happens.